Om Namah Shivaya. We'll start with Ribhu Gita Chapter 16, Verse 12. Thought is the void. There is no doubt of this. Brahman indeed is all the world. I indeed am sentience. I indeed am the attributeless. Thought is really nothing. Thought is really nothing, so he calls it a void. The void, though, is just the thought of such. There is no doubt of this. From where does certainty come? It does not come from thought. It does not come from a state such as a causal state that is a void. From where does certainty come? Brahman indeed is all the world. There's not a trace of this world apart from Brahman. If Brahman is fully, completely this world, then does such a world exist at all? I indeed am sentience, Chaitanya, sentience, awareness. Whatever awareness there is, it is only myself. It is only Brahman, and Brahman is the self. If there is no world apart from the self or Brahman, if there is no awareness apart from the I, the self, which is Brahman, then I indeed am the attributeless. I am not something subtle, not something gross, not something that is an effect, not something that is a cause, nothing that has any attribute of any kind, making your vision non-objective. Know yourself. The attributeless one realizes its own nature. Verse 13. The mind indeed is worldly existence. The mind indeed is the mandala, The mind indeed is bondage. The mind indeed is sin. For the mind and by the mind, the state of worldly existence, or samsara, the transmigratory existence of birth and death. That samsara, it appears in the mind, by the mind, for the mind. Mandala means circle. It is a term indicating a realm of experience among the tantrics and others. You use that for meditation purposes. That, what it appears as, and what it represents, and the power supposedly inherent in it, all of that is just the mind. What is it that appears as limitation? What is it that appears as bondage? It is only the mind, binding itself by itself. The mind itself manifests as any falling into bondage or suffering. It is the mind itself that appears as sin. All of such is just the mind. What is the mind? Verse 14. The mind indeed is the great sorrow. The mind indeed is the cause of the body. The mind indeed is said to be the world of phenomena. The mind indeed is the body. It is due to the mind alone that one grieves, that one experiences sorrow. Of what is suffering made? Just the mind, or we may say the mind's activities. The appearance of a body and of a state of being embodied is just the false appearance by the mind. The mind appears as if in the body, but the body appears only in the mind. A body appears according to the state of mind, such as waking and dreaming, and others. Apart from the mind in which that appears, do you have any experience of a body? It is your own mind that appears as the world and all the phenomena in it. Anything that can be said about the world of phenomena is just the mind. The mind indeed is the body. The mind also is the embodied individual. The mind is ignorance and the consequent bondage of that ignorance. All such things do not actually exist. It is just the mind. So what is the mind? Verse 15. The mind indeed is the great sattva. The mind indeed is the four-faced Lord, Brahma. The mind indeed is a pair of glasses. The mind indeed is verily Hari directly seen. The mind indeed is said to be Shiva, remembered. Sattva may be understood as harmonious or as beingness. The mind is all that. That which is the creative force for the entire universe, however represented or symbolized, the mind is only that. The Lord Hari, directly experienced or envisioned, is only the mind. If all of this is only the mind, what is the mind? It is spoken of as Shiva, being remembered. But what is the mind? Verse 16. The mind indeed is said to be magic. The mind is mere sankalpa. The mind only is the great sin. The mind indeed is the evil-minded. The mind indeed is said to be magic. It makes things that are not there appear as if they're. And it makes what is there appear as not there. Such magic is called Indra's net. That with Indra, the chief of the gods, entwines living beings. All of that is just the mind. The mind is mere sankalpa. It is a fixed idea, a rigid thought form. The mind is mere sankalpa. There is nothing to the mind but the false appearance of thought. the appearance of what is wrong, what becomes delusively atrocious, is just the magic of the mind. Even that which is ill-intended or evil-minded is only the appearance of the mind. If this is so, and all of these, from divine to the sinful, are only appearances of the mind, what is the mind? Verse 17. The mind indeed is said to be all. The mind indeed is the great fear. The mind indeed is the supreme Brahman. The mind indeed is all by itself. It is said to be all. What is it in itself? What is the mind? Cast far away the objects, the concepts that seem to clutter up the mind, and discern what the mind is by itself. The mind itself is fear, fear of transience and anything else. And it is the mind that experiences the fear brought about by itself. What is it in itself? Only the Supreme Brahman. That is the ever-existent and the sole existent. The mind indeed is all by itself. That which alone exists, which is realized by the wise as the Supreme Brahman, which is the cause of all, yet brings about nothing other than itself. Is this not your mind? Verse 18. The mind indeed is of the nature of consciousness. The mind it is that makes the mind what it is. Consciousness alone is of the nature of the Supreme. Consciousness alone is the Supreme Abode. The mind indeed is consciousness. That is its nature. That is its existence. If consciousness alone exists, where is the scope for separate, differentiated mind? Consciousness is unborn and indestructible. The mind is the idea of a separately existing, individualized knower. Now the mind it is that makes the mind what it is. Consciousness exists, limitless, unborn and unformed. It is not an effect of a precedent cause. What makes the mind appear as the mind? Only the mind. If something unreal has made the unreal appear as if real, has anything been created at all? Consciousness alone is of the nature of the Supreme. Consciousness alone is the supreme abode. Consciousness dwells in itself, as itself, by itself. No other is involved. No other actually exists. The Supreme is illimitable and nondual. The Supreme is undifferentiated. The unknown knower of all that is known. Who am I? The consciousness alone. Whence am I? Consciousness alone. The only knower with nothing else to be known, containing all knowing, yet never moving. This is the nature of your own consciousness, the supreme. Dissolve the false ego or individuality. And what has been said here in these verses will seem obvious. Om Namah Siva.